Should we get them in anyway?
What number are you at? 3. You need that one.
I think number 1 is no show. So
Do we have our name?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Same order.
Right. I think we'll start with probably 5 minutes late already. So good evening and Assalamu alaikum to everyone here today. Before we actually start any proceedings, we'd like to do just a short prayer from the Quran, and I'll ask Muhammad to come and do that for us, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم صدق الله العظيم.
Again, good evening and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sahil Aher and I'm the chair of the Indian Muslim Welfare Society. Can I welcome you all, and especially our prospective parliamentary candidates. I know you all have a very busy schedule, so we're very grateful that you could give up your time to be with us this evening. And it's a great pleasure to be kind of hosting this event again. I did it not very long ago, and this seems to be coming around very, very quickly. Let's hope we don't have another one in another 6 months. The way things are going, we might have one. In terms of just some of the domestic arrangements to the house rules, there's no planned fire drill. We have our last candidate. Yeah, house rules. There's no planned fire drill, but there is a fire. There's a fire exit across there. Also, the stairs that you came up from, that which you could use. Those are the emergency exits. In terms of the toilets, the gents' toilets are across on my left, and the ladies' toilets are on the right. In terms of the plan for this evening, we're going to give each candidate 5 minutes, and it's going to be 5 minutes. And I'm going to time them, so make sure they don't overrun. Maybe by 5 seconds, fine, but 5 minutes. And then we'll allow 5 minutes for questions to those particular to each of those candidates. And at the end, what we'll do is we'll have an open forum, so you can ask any questions to any of the candidates or all the candidates. So, and we're hoping to finish by the latest. Well, the planned finish time is 9 o'clock. But if obviously there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of questions being fired from the floor, what we could do is to extend that to maybe just 15 minutes, maybe 9:15, but no later than 9:15 is our scheduled finish time. In terms of questions as well, there are written questions we're taking, so you might have a better chance of actually getting a written question rather than on the floor. So I might pick, obviously, if the questions are good, it might be better getting those questions rather than somebody from the floor. But we'll see how it goes. So we'll start by, thanks for coming. So Mr. Kasif Hanif, who is the independent candidate, will be our first speaker, and he'll have 5 minutes.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I'm here today to convince you to vote for me. All of you in this room, all the people who will be viewing this on YouTube and sharing this on social media. Now, all of you are here today because you want to listen to all the candidates and make a judgment on who to vote for on June the 8th. Now, of course, I want you to vote for me. Well, why should you vote for me? Well, let me start by telling you a story. In 2008, there was a banking crisis that was caused by greedy bankers. Now, people lost their jobs, their homes, and the financial markets were in ruin. In 2010, there was a general election in which no party won outright, and there was a coalition government formed, the real coalition of chaos, who doubled the national debt, yes, doubled the national debt, then claimed all the problems were caused by Labour. This same coalition bailed out the bankers and placed £700 billion of debt on us, the British taxpayer. Yes, you heard correct, £700 billion on us. And the people, and not the bankers, had to share this burden. The bankers have been given bonuses, and the then Chancellor George Osborne stated banker bashing was over, even though the bankers haven't paid the money back. Now this country's debt is a staggering 1.7 trillion, and every penny has to be paid back. And our country had to borrow £52 billion last year to cover the costs of all our vital services, the NHS, education, defence, police, and other vital services. Now that £52 billion has been added to the national debt. Now this is unacceptable. This can't continue. The government, to its credit, recognised that this had to change, but they chose austerity for the British public, for you, for me, for everybody, instead of going after the people who caused this financial crash. But why should we have to bear the burden? It was the bankers that caused this. And I was really angry and frustrated by this. And I decided I must do something about it. And here I'm standing before you all today, running as an independent candidate for Batley and Spen, who now I believe the people need a bailout. Now the Conservative Party are going to continue with austerity. The Liberal Democrats can't be trusted. UKIP is finished and Labour is imploding with a leader who does not have the support of the majority of its MPs. I believe this constituency needs a strong voice. I believe this constituency needs a strong voice in Parliament and needs an MP who will put you, the British people, first, and not any Westminster Party loyalties. I believe this constituency deserves an MP who wants more money for the NHS, who wants an end to zero-hour contracts, who wants a Brexit that will work for the people, which will mean taking us out of the single market and also means ending free movement of people. An MP who wants to lower the financial requirements for people who want to get a visa to bring their spouse over from abroad, and most importantly, who is not afraid to speak his mind. I believe I am that person, and if you elect me, I will be that MP. Thank you.
Any questions to Mr. Hanif? Anyone? There's one across there. Have you got a, sorry, Mohammed, have you got a roving mic? The lady in the front.
Hello, congratulations for standing. It must be very scary. As an independent candidate, you won't have the backup of a whole party machine, and that can be very isolating. So which party would you vote with when you're going with the vote?
Well, I mean, I think that's not a burden. I think it's very special. Actually, I can choose which policies I want from each party, and on a party-by-party basis, I can vote whichever way I want. For example, I support UKIP with Brexit, but I do like Labour's policies. But the Labour MPs are not really behind the leader, all of them, because they proved that by wanting to get rid of him. So I believe being independent is actually better. So you can vote on whichever issues you want, and you're not held back by party loyalties.
Yeah, go on.
Do you know anything about the procedures in Parliament so that you will have a voice rather than being swamped by all the other candidates who are in their hundreds?
No, well, I mean, you can really ask a question to the Prime Minister questions. Being an MP, you can have a vote. Out of 650 people, you have one vote. The 650 people who are voted by the constituents each have a vote. They have a voice in Parliament. So, I mean, quite simple, really.
Okay, there's one. Mike's coming across.
Right, I've got a specific question for you regarding Schedule 7. This particular piece of legislation has openly been in operation for nearly 16 years, where Muslims have been actually stopped at airports, questioned regarding their personal life. Authorities have been seeking information, so there's been a lot of Muslims who've been targeted by Schedule 7. So if you were elected as MP for Batley and Spen, what would you do for the Muslim community in relation to Schedule 7 and its disproportionate effect is having on the Muslim community across the country, not just Batley and Spen?
Well, first of all, I support all counter-terrorism measures, but this particular one, I believe, is very, it targets Muslims in a particularly bad way. So, of course, I will support scrapping it, but let me just be clear, I want to be tough on terrorism, completely, utterly tough on terrorism.
Okay, there's one more there.
Thank you. You correctly refer to the difficulties in reducing the nation's deficit each year. What would your proposals be for actually curing that ill and recovering to a surplus?
Yes, well, first of all, our corporation tax at the moment is 19%, which is £45 billion a year. America under President Barack Obama was 38%. They are double the corporation tax of this country. So first of all, I would believe raising it in line with America with 38%. That would help raise another extra £45 billion a year. Completely eliminating foreign aid budget would bring £13 billion extra, and of course the money we give to Brussels. But if we do all that, we'll be in a surplus. Without raising income tax, without increasing anything whatsoever, we'll have a surplus. Then we can begin to pay back a huge debt, which we pay £50 billion on average a year in interest.
Okay. Any more questions?
First of all, congratulations for your standing as an independent candidate. You are exercising your democratic right, and I congratulate you. In the past, what you have done as a public, in a public platform? Just I want to know.
What, sorry?
What you have done as a councillor or anything, any public life have you served to the community or anything? Just I want to know.
First and foremost, I have not served the community yet. I'm quite young, but I've took an interest in politics from a very young age. When I could have voted, I was quite young. All my friends know I kept bringing political issues up to them, and they basically were quite interested in me. They came to me. I told them what I believed was right. And when the first one was when I found out about politics in 2010, I managed to get asked for Liberal Democrats. I could have voted, but I agreed with what they said. But then they broke all their promises. That really got me frustrated and angry. I thought I need to do something about that today. So that's why I'm here in front of everybody here today. Want to make a difference. I'm bringing trust back in politics.
Doesn't matter. Trump has no experience, so you are all right. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Hani, for that. Can I now invite Alex Lukic, who is an independent candidate? 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back here at the Al-Hikmah Centre, where we had a very enjoyable hustings 2 years ago. Before I start with the politics, I think we should take a moment to remember Jo Cox, who should be here on this table tonight, putting her case for her re-election. I met Mrs. Cox on a number of occasions, and although we didn't agree on very much, we listened to each other in an open and honest manner. And I think it was great yesterday that the candidates came together at Little Latham Farmers Fund Day in Gummersall to remember Mrs. Cox and her message that we have far more in common than that which divides us. And of course, this day is the anniversary of the death of 25-year-old Fusilier Lee Rigby, who was murdered on the 22nd of May 2013. And our thoughts are with his family also, especially his 6-year-old son. So first, I would like to reflect on the political events that have happened since we were last here. We're all surprised when the Conservative Party won a majority of seats at the 2015 general election, and when David Cameron was forced to deliver on his manifesto commitment to hold an in-out referendum on our EU membership. I knew I was in for a very busy year or so. I jointly led the local cross-party Leave campaign, holding street stalls in Batley, Cleckheaton and Hetman Wyke, and we were very happy to see the Leave votes of about 60% in Batley and Spen contribute to the national Brexit victory of well over 1 million votes, on a very high turnout as well. Britain had chosen to take back control of her own destiny. Of course, between the last election and the triggering of Article 50, all the main political parties have got new leaders. And now Theresa May has seen an opportunity to secure her mandate. And when you look at the local election results, the polls, and what I'm personally hearing on the doorstep, it seems pretty clear that, nationally speaking, only one party is going to win on the 8th of June. And this brings a particular focus for us on who our local MP is going to be, because there's less of a proxy vote for the national government. Labour's goal appears to be to maximise its vote share compared to 2015 to achieve a better result than last time. And that would effectively allow Jeremy Corbyn and his friends to hold on to the leadership of the party. And as long as he wants to stay there, I don't see him going anywhere, as long as, you know, the majority of the membership support him. But I find their manifesto a bit implausible. I think there's a lot of promises in there that they've made with no expectation of delivering on. The Conservative manifesto, on the other hand, is a clear demonstration of what happens when you have a weak opposition, because we have a government, well, a governing party, who are proposing to take people's homes off them when they die to pay for their care in old age, and they're still probably going to win the way things are looking at the moment. So why back the local independents in this election? Well, one of the local independents in this election. So I'm a local teacher. I'm the only candidate who fought for Brexit in the local area. I'm putting my own personal reputation on the line for getting on with the job, for making Brexit as much of a success as possible for the local area. This is what I fought for the last several years, and that's the main reason I'm putting myself forward. I'm offering my full support to Theresa May as far as Brexit goes, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be subject to a party whip on other issues. I want to open up debate in Parliament on issues that the other parties here don't want to talk about, such as why our vital public services are struggling to receive funding, to receive adequate funding, when we're sending billions of pounds to some of the most corrupt regimes on earth and to countries who spend their own money on aircraft carriers, space programs and nuclear weapons. I want to put Batley and Spen's interests first on every vote. The way things are going so far is quite interesting, really. I think my deposit seems fairly safe from what I'm hearing, but if everybody who is considering voting for me actually voted for me, I'd stand a very good chance of winning this.
Alex, you got 30 seconds.
Okay. If I don't win the election, you know, I'll still be here afterwards. I live and work in the constituency. But tonight is about you putting us through our paces, and I'm sure you'll give it your best shot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Right, well, questions from the floor. You've got 5 minutes, so if there's anybody else. Right, gentleman in the back.
Good evening. Last time we met was outside Brighton Street Community Centre at the election.
Yes.
And I asked you a question then, and at that time you were a full-blown UKIP member and parliamentary candidate, as to what was the point of UKIP after the Brexit vote. Now, you were successful, or the campaign to leave was successful, and you were a UKIP member then. So what's changed?
Yeah.
It seems to me that anybody voting for you would be a pointless vote. We used to call it the dustbin vote. When we used to refer to perhaps the Liberal Democrats, or John Prescott did many times anyway. So what's the point of voting for your good self? You have no party machine anymore. UKIP's imploded. So why are you standing there? Why are you standing again?
Well, I'm standing here ultimately because I fought very hard for us to leave the European Union, and so I think it's only right that I don't run away from that, that I put myself forward. You're right, I don't have a party machine behind me, but I do have, you know, a fairly small dedicated band of supporters helping me out, and I'm getting messages of support every day. So I think whatever happens, there's no way I'm going to regret standing here. I think anything could happen. It's a very strange election. I think a lot of people are looking for something different. So, you know, put myself forward. I think I've got something of a chance, probably not the most likely chance. But I think if we did elect an independent here, in Batley and Spen, it would be a very historic moment and really have resonate across the country that people are looking for something, different. They want credible representatives of the local area who aren't that interested in party politics.
Any more questions?
You had a lot to say about other people and other parties and other candidates. I'm still not clear about what you actually stand for, so perhaps you could tell us in some detail what it is that you propose to do.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, everyone's going to get one of these through the post anyway, which has my 5 local priorities and my 5 priorities, nationally as well. My 5 local priorities are for making sure the local area is ready for the economic opportunities of Brexit, because we're going to be signing a lot of new trade deals with non-EU countries, and I think we've got a lot of potential here to boost the local economy there. Sorry. Right. Okay. I had a contact this evening from a local constituent who's not really the only one who's worried about local school places as well. All but one of our secondary schools in Batley and Spen is oversubscribed, and there's many families who, well, there's about 8,000 kids in Kirklees in primary schools in class size of over 30. There's hundreds of families in the area who haven't been able to get into one of their 3 preferences for secondary school. I want to fight for a fully resourced NHS with a full range of local services. I want to promote integration of communities, because I think that's an issue that's been highlighted very much in the case review and things like that. And also I want to look at transport, both public transport and improving the state of the local roads. Nationally, as I sort of mentioned, foreign aid already, spending billions of pounds on that. But I think it's the wrong priority at the moment when we should be supporting our public services more. There's £40 billion of untapped trade potential with non-EU countries, which we could achieve by 2030, according to the Open Europe think tank. I want to fight for a better distribution of government spending across the regions, jumpstart the regional economies, because there's a big disparity between what's spent in London compared to what's spent in the north of England. I want the UK to reclaim its full 200-mile exclusive economic zone, its fishing waters, which no party seems to have committed to yet. And I also want the UK, when we have control of our own tariffs and international trade, to end import tariffs on African coffee and similar products from poorer countries to help boost some of the poorest economies in the world.
Okay, thank you for that. I think you just run out of time. He's got just one question from the floor here. Why are you not standing for UKIP this time around?
So, well, obviously, it was quite a tough decision for me. I spent a long time looking at that, looking at everything that had happened since the referendum. What I'm mainly in politics to try and achieve is good governance, whether that's good governance on a local level or good governance on a national level. And I think if I was to be in a party, a national party, I'd want to be in a party that seemed to be interested in being a party of government and being a credible party of government. The direction UKIP was going in, I didn't feel was necessarily achieving that. But I'm proud of everything we have achieved in UKIP with my colleagues there, because we've been incredibly influential and achieved the primary mission that we were setting out to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I know that there were a number of people who wanted to ask questions to Alex, but again, you'll have the opportunity to do so at the end when we have some time. But he had his 5 minutes. I suppose the trick is when people are answering questions, not to take too long to answer questions, and they could probably get more questions that way. Can I ask Mr. Freeman from the Green Party to come and talk to you? My 5 minutes started yet? As soon as I said that.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome. Thank you for coming today. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to what everybody's taken so far. I'm going to spend my 5 minutes telling you about me as a person. You'll learn about me as a politician in the following 2.5 hours or so of questions and answers. So I grew up on a council estate, not knowing my parents, an orphan, very poor background. And I did what a lot of my friends did. I escaped that poverty by joining the military. So I spent 6 years in the Royal Air Force, trained as an electronics engineer, and afterwards really, really valued the education I got there and thought education is the key to everything. So I went as a mature student then to university and did a degree in psychology as a mature student. Later on, as a very mature student, I did a master's degree in IT. But I also have qualifications as a plumber and a plasterer, and I'm as proud of those qualifications as I am of the academic ones. I've also lived and worked in some very diverse cultures. I spent 7 years in Saudi Arabia. I also spent 7 years in Argentina. If you've got time to listen to the story someday, you might be surprised to hear the toughest place to live was Argentina. So I've had a pretty unique life history, which I believe enables me to relate to people from all parts of our incredibly diverse society here in Batley and Spen. I can talk to and feel comfortable with anybody, and I think people are comfortable speaking to me. 9 years ago, my life changed hugely. I became a father and realized I needed to set down roots. I have family here close by in Hikmah, and eventually that's where we settled, and we love it here. Other things were triggered by becoming a father. The other main one was I suddenly took a much greater interest in politics because I had an interest in wanting my son to grow up into a better world. My son and his friends. I never liked the two-party system though, so I'm looking around to see where I can get involved in politics. And I was interested in politics when I was at university. I was fairly active, but I was always torn because the idea that you had to believe in all the left-wing stuff or all the right-wing stuff never sat well with me. I always liked bits from here and bits from there and could never commit myself to a particular party. So I started looking around and got drawn to the Green Party. The first reason I got drawn to the Green Party is because I thought they seem to be nice people. Because the other thing I was horrified by the politics in this country, looking at that house down in Westminster, was the rows and rows of people on both sides that came through that conveyor belt of public school, studying politics at Oxford or Cambridge, becoming a political intern, then becoming a politician. Never had a real job in their lives. And that's on both sides of the house. For the last 20 plus years, the majority of the politicians there have come off that conveyor belt. So I joined the Greens initially thinking, or I was attracted to the Greens thinking they just seem to be nice people. And then when I started looking at their policies, I realized that they chimed with me. The fact that they have core values based on looking after the environment, on social justice, on respect for diversity, really made me realize that's where I should be if I'm going to be active in politics. Now, the job we have as a party and as politicians is basically to poke the incumbent government and opposition.
Alan, you got a minute.
And opposition with a sharp stick to make them remember exactly who they represent. We need a change in our so-called democracy. Maybe we need a revolution. Maybe that revolution starts with the Green Party. Our manifesto, called the Green Guarantee, is not a manifesto that says this is what we'll do in government, because we're not going to win 330 seats. We're realists. But it's a list of promises of things that we will do as individual MPs to poke that government and the opposition, to shake them up in Westminster. For that reason, I hope you'd consider voting for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alan. Any questions from the floor?
Hi, good evening to you. Would you say, as Bob the Builder's credential, what can you actually fix within a local community?
Sorry, could you say that again?
With your Bob the Builder's credential, what can you actually fix within local community?
Bob the Builder. Yeah, fair enough. I asked for that one. I asked for that. What can I fix in the local community? Well, there are so many things that need fixing in this country as a whole. There are things that I've identified that are important for this local community. Quite a few chime with what Alex said, actually. The NHS is in a mess. What's happening with Dewsbury Hospital being downgraded? I would be fighting to get that changed. But there's one thing that stands out for me that I think needs fixing in this local community. Community relations. We seem to be quite a divided community. I think there needs to be more education about community relations, particularly with the Muslim community. And it is about education, I think. So it's easy to stand here and say, oh, I'll fix the NHS, I'll make education better. You can be a voice if you're standing as an independent or as a small party, as I'm standing for, as I said, to be heard and to poke people and say, this is what you should be doing. And that's what I would try and do. I'm not saying I can fix everything. I can't, but I can stand up and be the voice for this community.
Thank you. There's a question. No, one across there then.
You said that you want to be elected into Parliament so you can poke the other parties in the ribs and generally direct them in the way that you want the Green Party to go. Don't the Green Party want to be in government themselves? Don't they want to be leaders in some form of coalition or on their own? And perhaps if they did, if some miracle was going to happen, but you never know these days, who would actually be the Prime Minister? Because you've got two leaders, haven't you, which must be cause difficulties from time to time, I should imagine.
Not really. On that last point, we have democratic processes in place to decide things like that, and it would be decided by our democratic process. About the first question, don't we want to be in power? Yes, of course we do. But we're also realists. You start small. We have one MP at the moment who is universally considered as a fantastic MP, putting to rest the idea that Greens don't have a clue. We've got one MP at the moment who for 2 years in a row was voted the best MP in Parliament by her peers. We, of course, would like to be in power. And it doesn't actually take a miracle. If you know the history of the Labour Party, they were formed in 1900. And in that election, they got 2 MPs. 20 years later, they were in government. Things like that do happen.
One last question.
Hello there. What are your priorities for clean energy generation and sustainable transport in the constituency?
It's not a plant, honestly. Well, I stand for the Green Party, so obviously that's a huge priority for us. To ask for plans within the constituency, our plans are kind of aimed higher than that. We obviously are pushing constantly for clean energy. There've been some great milestones passed recently. We've had our first whole day in this country with power generated using nothing from coal-powered stations. We had the day when there was more power generated from wind power than there was from nuclear power. Things are happening. We would like to see them happening a lot faster. And if we have more MPs in the House, we'd be pushing for them to happen a lot faster. So obviously that plays into my territory. I would be pushing very hard for those things to happen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can I ask Dr. Anne Mayat I hope I pronounced it right, because there's a surname within the Asian community called Mayet, Mayet, and they probably, I don't know whether there are any sitting in the room here. They might, oh, there's one there. He probably think you related to him. Thank you. Your fault.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me here this evening to explain to you why I want to be your MP and why I think I'll do a good job for you. It's a great opportunity here. It's an honour, actually, to stand for Parliament. And whatever happens, it will always be a great honour to be here. But I'm asking you to vote for me, so I need to tell you a bit about myself and my values as a Conservative. My name is Anne Myatt. I am Theresa May's local candidate here in Batley and Spen for the general election. I am Yorkshire. My father's from Leeds. My mother was from Skelmanthorpe. My husband's family from Dinnington near Sheffield. Yes, I have not grown up in Batley and Spen, but if I am elected as your MP, I will be here. I will live here when I'm not in Parliament doing your business there. And I will guarantee that within a few months you will not know the difference, because I'm very good at listening and learning. I'm quick on the uptake. I live in West Yorkshire. I've lived in Yorkshire most of my life. I went to Leeds University Medical School where I trained to be a doctor. I'm a hospital consultant, so I know the NHS inside and out. I also know I've been very fortunate in my life. I count my blessings. So I know that it's my responsibility to look after myself and my family, my friends and neighbours, but also to give to charity, to look after other people and to pay my taxes so that the state, through taxes, can look after the people who cannot help themselves. That at heart is what it is to be a Conservative. Conservatives believe that people who can look after themselves should, and that the state, through the taxes from the people, should look after those who cannot help themselves. I also know as a Conservative that there is no such thing as government money. There's no money tree that we shake to bring public services. It's your money. We get money via taxes from business and money, hard-earned money, out of your pockets in income tax. We also know, we respect the fact that you know best how to spend your money yourself. So it's always our instinct to take as little as possible from you and to use that money to best effect in all of our services on which we all depend. I also know that if we tax too much, particularly business, and if we take people's money out of their pocket too much, we discourage people from working. We discourage enterprise. We, in effect, kill the goose that lays the golden egg. We know this. We've been in power a long time on and off. We've learned the lessons. So what do I offer you as an MP? Well, I will work hard as your champion in Parliament to get the best possible deal from the government to bring back here to Batley and Spen those things which we need. I will work with the councillors and local people to get fair shares from the local taxes that are currently spent by Kirk Leeds. Not necessarily in a fair way, from what I've heard. As a doctor with many years' experience in the NHS, I fully understand the challenges facing the health service, and it is not all about just more money. I know the concerns of people here about their health services, particularly the urgent care services in Dewsbury Hospital. And I promise to work so hard to make sure that you have the care you need where and when you need it. But the most important issue at the general election is not my future, or indeed any of the candidates here. It's the country's future. It is the future that our Prime Minister, Theresa May, can obtain via the deal that she does with the European Union to guarantee a strong and stable economy, to make sure that our prosperity is as good as it can be.
Doctor,
because the EU...
Doctor, you got 30 seconds.
is not going to give it back to us without a bit of a fight. So I think in a sporting thing, it's not a game. You don't send your team B to the World Cup or to the Olympics. You have to send the best. And I believe Theresa May is the best person to really work hard on our behalf to get the best possible deal post-Brexit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As you can see, there are loads of hands flying up now. Where should we start? 1, 2.
Hello, very nice to see, encouraging. I personally like very much when female candidates are there. We need more and more of them. But please, no offense to gentlemen here. And now the point is, here, Batley and Spen, people say it's a labor nest, or better say, a labor hive. What you think we could do different from Labour? They have been here, Labour candidates. The Queen is elected, although still to be elected. What could you do different?
Well, the first thing,
in 2 points or 3 points, I mean.
I think I would work cross-party with everyone in a very pragmatic way to get the job done. It will not be for one particular party's advantage or another. I've always done that in my medical life. You analyze the problem, you come up with a solution, diagnosis, and you then get on with the treatment. Without fear or favour, that's the way to do it. Simply focus on getting a good job done.
Thank you. Keep the questions short and then probably get in a lot more. The gentleman at the back there. Oh, sorry, you got the mic. Yeah.
You said that you would help your constituents get their NHS care where and when they needed it. What if the where and the when was in conflict with your own party's plans for local NHS provision?
I think the thing about my party's plan, it actually isn't my party's plans. The local NHS provision is decided by the commissioning groups. It is decided by the local doctors working with all the local care professionals to decide what is best to do about giving the best possible sustainable health care. Now, we tend to think of it's all around a hospital building. Actually, it isn't. If you think of someone who has a heart attack, the most important thing actually is to have a defibrillator machine in the community accessible 24/7. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Local area, and you can't talk about supporting your constituents at getting their care where and when they need it if that isn't what is in line with what your party want.
My party wants the best possible care for everybody within the constraints of our public finances. If we give a load of money to health service, we have to scrap something else. Well, that's fair enough. It's about public discussion, if that's what you want. But it isn't just about money. It's about how we use it, how we manage it. You know yourself as a nurse. You can go onto one ward and it's an oasis of peace and quiet and orderly, well-managed care. Other places, they're running around and it's really not good. Other places, they seem to have far fewer staff than they need, essentially, and others, maybe even overstaffed. Now, that's not about money. That's management. It really is. And I also know as a healthcare professional that good quality care costs less than bad care. And if you know this, if you get the diagnosis right first time, seen by the right professional, and you start the right treatment, it's a breeze, it works. If you give the wrong diagnosis, the wrong treatment, in the wrong place, and it takes you ages to get through the system, that's bad and expensive. And it's bad for people. The money really isn't the issue concerning me. As a doctor, I want people to have streamlined, easy care, whatever it is. So that's what I'm aiming for.
Can we move on to the last question?
Can we move on to the last question?
Mr. Mayor, you talk a lot about money and other people's money. And there is, of course, this illusion that Conservatives are good with other people's money. But isn't it the fact that out of the last 26 years that you've been in power, you've balanced the budget in only 2 years out of 26. The Labour Party, which I'm not a supporter of, has managed to do that
4 times as often as the Conservatives. What guarantee can you give us that if Mrs. May and yourself are elected, that you won't be you won't be as financially incompetent in the future as you clearly have been in the past?
I absolutely cannot accept that the Labour Party is good with public finances. 3 times since the war, they have overspent and left office with big debts. We always seem, unfortunately, to the party that comes in to try to balance the books.
Can you stop interrupting, please?
Well, first of all, we had a coalition in 2010. We've only actually had a Conservative majority for 2 years. You can't turn a tanker round at sea, can you?
Okay, thank you very much. I know that
Thanks, Tom. There's loads of people who want to ask questions. Unfortunately, Doctor's time is up, but you will get an opportunity to ask those questions at the end. Can I now? I know, but the time is up. Unfortunately, sorry. You can get the first question in when they finish. Okay. Can I now invite Tracy Bribben?
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll just wait for the timing to start.
You can go now.
To be efficient. Firstly, thank you to IMWS. They always host a fantastic event, and to our chair. Also, can I second what Alex says about the truce on Sunday? It was a bit weird, I have to say. But once we got talking about families and children and operations, we did realize that, in fact, we do have far more in common than that which divides us. And of course, we do remember Joe this evening. So thank you so much for giving me your trust. I've been your MP for the last 6 months. It's been the privilege of my life as a local girl to represent my community. And I've been busy. I've been locally campaigning against the downgrade of Dewsbury Hospital, against the cuts to our schools and to our police. And we know more than most about the bravery of our police. In Parliament, I've been working on the Women and Equality Select Committee, the Gender Pay Gap and Disability in the Built Environment. I'm working on the Apprenticeship Bill Committee and tabled an amendment about careers advice for our young people. I've been also pushing the government on what is important to us as a community, trying to get them to take action. It's shameful there's been no action on Kashmir and Palestine. I've also been speaking in the House of Parliament regarding humanitarian aid to Syria and to Burma. Now, no disrespect to the rest of the candidates, but this is a 2-horse race. It's between the Labour Party and the Tories. And the Tories have never been good to us. Since 2010, 50% of our council budget has been cut. There's been cuts to the NHS, to our schools, police off our streets, 1,200 police from West Yorkshire alone. And now we have their manifesto, which is uncosted. And you've seen the chaos today around social care, and not guaranteeing the triple lock, and taking school dinners, 900,000 school dinners from our children. It's chaos out there, but it doesn't have to be this way. The Labour Party are always the party for the many and not the few. And we have a better plan for Britain, and our fully costed manifesto that has money for the NHS, money for schools, and money for police. I mean, every young person in our community, they are smart, they've got talents, they're creative, they've got ambition. They deserve the opportunities that other children around the country have. So it's time to make life easier for you. Public services that work for you, children that aren't saddled with debt, and getting the best Brexit for you, your communities and businesses and your family. But just for a moment, away from the national picture, it's been such a privilege to be your MP, and I'm ambitious for Batley and Spen. And coming from Batley and Spen, this is the only place where I would want to be an MP. You are my community. And I hope you know that I've been a hardworking, campaigning MP. And if you give me the privilege of your vote and I get re-elected, I pledge to you, you will always be front and foremost in my thoughts, and I will stand by your side and I will fight your corner. Thank you so much.
Tracy, right, questions. One there, across there.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Who's speaking? Where are you?
There. What are your top 3 local priorities for Batley and Spen, apart from Dewsbury Hospital?
Well, Dewsbury Hospital, obviously. But for me, it's the local schools. Every single school in Batley and Spen is getting cut. 9.4 million is taken off our school's budget. And it's not acceptable. I've been having campaigns, working with heads and teachers. We've had public meetings. I've written letters to the Yorkshire Post and to Justin Greening, signed by heads. And what's shocking is it's every school. So, for example, Hetman White Grammar is losing a German teacher because they've lost the funds, or losing a TA. So schools, absolutely. Regeneration. I know that the centres of our communities, Hekman Dwight, Batley, we need a new idea about how we revitalise those centres. We've got a lovely market square in Birstall that's thriving, and the Birstall in Bloom is fantastic. We need to make sure, I'm working with Simon and a couple of others regarding the opportunity to turn the market into a theatre, a studio theatre, so that we can have a nighttime economy in Hetman Dwight. And of course, it goes without saying that the cultural industries is a big interest for me, because I know that that brings jobs and opportunities and training for young people. And for those who don't know, there's going to be an amazing production of Les Mis, which was Joe's favourite musical, in Blakeridge Mills. It's an old go-karting mill, in the summer, with the director of Billy Elliot, the producer of Harry Potter in the West End, and also the musical director from Hamilton, which is a show you can't get a ticket. And 100 young people have been just joined the Batley and Spen Youth Theatre. But in that process, they'll start to understand, I hope, that there are jobs in the arts that are for them. And that's why I'm so excited with the Labour Party manifesto, that it's actually ring fencing money for the creative industries and for cultural opportunities for young people, because we know in schools, don't we, that if you narrow the curriculum with these cuts, what you're doing is you're cutting out all the creative stuff, because it's easy to cut drama, to cut music, to cut art. But our young people absolutely need those skills to be resilient for the future, because the future is probably 5 or 6 jobs, and they've got to be light on their feet. They've got to understand about problem solving and picking themselves up and getting new ideas and being creative. So those are my 3 priorities. I mean, there are many more, but they're my 3 focused ones at the forefront of my mind.
Question? Who else?
Thank you for your question.
One.
Let's hear some ladies' voices. Come on.
Hiya, Tracy. You mentioned in your speech regarding Kashmir and Palestine. I would like to ask, what has the Labour Party done towards Kashmir issue and Palestine issue? Well,
I think it's pretty shameful, actually, the way that there seems to be little appetite for movement to some sort of solution in Kashmir. What we're trying to do is we're trying to force the government to get round the table to have those conversations. We will ban pellet guns, which are absolutely disgusting. And as I know, people in our community through Facebook and Twitter, you know what's happening to your families in these countries. And it's painful to watch. And we are determined to get some action. So we'll ban the pellet guns, we'll have more conversations. I mean, Theresa May had the opportunity with Modi, where, you know, it was a great chance for her to say, stop the violence. And it's not even just the pellet guns, it's violence against women and girls. on both sides actually, that it is not acceptable. We must you know, put that in the forefront of our minds. And regarding Palestine, of course, it's a two-state solution, and the Labour Party recognises Palestine, and hopefully that we can then get pressure on the United Nations to make that sustain on our world that is still not resolved. And it does seem to have very little appetite within our, you know, in Parliament to actually get some sort of solution. So I will be in your corner about that, absolutely.
Good evening,
Hello.
Tracy. What would you do to support Theresa May in stopping paying funding to the European Union? That would release funds back to the country. That would allow us to rebuild the infrastructure and all the rest of it. Would you support that?
Well, the 350 million for the NHS on the side of the bus, I'm not sure, you know, who can support Theresa May when her own colleagues are shooting her in the foot because they say one thing and then they do another. I mean, basically, you cannot trust a word Theresa May says. And we've seen it today with the U-turn on social care. And certainly I would be in a position where I am absolutely determined, because I am not like anybody else on this panel, because we have panelists who support Theresa May's hard Brexit, and there are panelists who also want a rerun of the referendum. Well, I know in Batley and Spen, you know, 63% voted to leave the European Union, and I'm listening to that. So I am determined to stand up to power. I will ask the awkward questions, and I will make sure that Batley and Spen's businesses and our opportunities are not curtailed, because certainly talking to bed manufacturers, cabinet makers, powder coaters, we are all already being affected by the insecurity and the instability around this issue. So we've got to get a move on. Thank you.
Right, our last candidate, Mr. John Lawson from the Liberal Democrat.
That's a long walk. Keeps you fit, though. Absolutely. Could do with it.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you to Al-Hikmah for hosting and your hospitality. Thank you very much. Excuse me. I'm glad to see so many people here tonight. It gives me confidence that the people in Batley and Spen are interested and engaged in this election, that they care. I find this reassuring, as it's an election which will fundamentally change the direction of this country over the next few years. 14 years ago, after studying and working around the country, me and my young family moved back to the north. We chose Batley because it felt like home. We lived on Princess Street, and we watched the new Tesco's being built. It was great fun. And as the children grew, we moved to Cleckheaton, where we still live. Me and my family have used the local hospitals and schools. I've had a business in the area. For the past 7 years, I've served as a councillor in Cleckheaton, but as some of the other councillors in the room know, we don't stick to just our borders. We make sure that we look at bigger pictures, so that we include everybody in anything that we do. The point is that when I see these services that we all share and rely on being weakened and destabilized by persistent underfunding, I feel I have to speak out. Before the snap election was called, I had a letter from the local head teacher who outlined the current pressures and the ones to come. They said that special education needs provision was already coming out of the head's budget. Redecorating the school had been put on hold until further notice. IT systems were out of date, and the curriculum was getting difficult to deliver. They feared that the next settlement would increase class sizes, narrow the curriculum, and further reduce staffing levels, increasing the burdens on those who remain. They were right. The stagnant funding settlement being offered schools means that in Batley and Spen alone, £8.5 million will be lost in real terms. There's an average of £540 per pupil or thereabouts. The word that the head teacher used to describe the future was untenable. The Lib Dems propose to invest £7 billion in schools to combat the effects of rising costs, making sure that we have the teachers, the class sizes, the kit and the buildings so that children, especially those from less well-off backgrounds, need to thrive in education. One of the biggest issues facing us all is more stagnant funding of the NHS and social care. Lib Dems will put a penny on the pound on income tax. I think you'll find that's fully funded. To give the NHS £6 billion, cash it needs to outstrip spiralling costs and give us the breathing space to make a health service fit for purpose. We will integrate the NHS and social care so that the people with long-term conditions like dementia can receive more treatment at home and be closer to their families. Receiving treatment at home, people are less prone to infection, they have privacy and dignity, and let's face it, they'll probably get more visitors. We will implement the cap on the cost of social care, which the Conservatives have abandoned. The idea of unfettered dementia tax in the Conservatives' manifesto, cost without limit, that hits close-knit families and surviving carers the hardest, is abhorrent to Liberal Democrats. Spending on schools and the NHS, the success of local businesses, our national security will all be dependent on Brexit. While acknowledging that the referendum gave the government the mandate to start negotiations to leave, we think that the British people should have the final say on the final deal, not politicians. And in that second referendum, the choice should also be to remain. There should also be a choice there. The Lib Dems are the largest party fighting the hard Brexit. The Conservatives have gone for hard Brexit, supported by Labour triggering Article 50, in which politicians decide whether or not the deal is good enough or whether we go to standard WTO rates or deals. This is despite the estimates from their own advisors that there would be £57 billion divorce bill. Thank you. So in this election, we choose Britain's direction. Conservatives and Labour look back to the past for inspiration in their manifestos. The Lib Dem choice is one of sensible, compassionate solutions to problems that affect us all. It's a choice to look outwards to the world and face the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, John.
Hello there.
You mentioned a few problems around health and education, which have increased within the last 7 years. For five of those years, the Liberal Democrats were in government when a lot of these problems were exacerbated. So why should the constituents of Batley and Spen trust you to solve these problems?
Yeah. We also put quite a lot of good things in place in that time. Pupil premium was rolled out at that time, so that those children who were from less well-off backgrounds or had any kind of special need in education. For example, adoptive children also get pupil premium. Not sure whether you know about that. So there were a lot of good things put in place by the coalition, and a lot of them were good were ideas. Some of them have been undone since then. The free school dinners, we were heavily involved in pushing that forward. That's at risk now. So yes, there were 5 years when we were in coalition. We're 2 years out now. Are things getting better? No, they're not. They're getting worse. So yes, we do need to be in government again. We need to be pushing for Liberal Democrat ideas and pushing for those people who really, really need our help.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, good night, John. One of the pledges you haven't mentioned in the Lib Dem manifesto is the legalisation of cannabis.
Oh, yes.
Which you haven't mentioned.
No.
Now, I'm sure there's a discussion to be had about that.
Absolutely.
But given your previous form, how can we guarantee that it won't get legalised, but you'll actually treble the sentencing for possession?
Well, considering it isn't legal now, we're not undoing something, are we? We're actually doing something. And what we're doing with legalization of cannabis is we're trying to make sure that it's not criminalized. So we're taking it out of the hands of criminal gangs. We're being able to then to regulate the strength of this stuff, because it's often it's very variable in the strength that you can use. We're able to tax it. If it goes into the shops, we're able to tax it. We can control where you can use it. The other side of this is that at the moment, there are lots of young lives ruined, and I'm not too strong a term that, ruined by a criminal record received when they're in the teens. You know, when you're 17, 18, and you get a conviction, that stays with you all your life. And if you're considering a professional career or a career in politics, or you know, that can do you some really serious harm. So, yeah, let's take it out of the hands of criminals, and let's take that revenue away from the criminals and put it in the public purse instead.
Okay. My question is, how can we trust you on any commitments if when your past record is you reneged on tuition fees, which was one of your major priorities?
Okay. Well, that's the answer in that is two parts. One, that was a manifesto promise. When we were elected, when we went into coalition, both parties left their manifestos at the door because they weren't allowed to take them through the door and have those manifestos. We still managed to get around about 65% of our manifesto through, but that wasn't one of them. So we were in no position to keep that promise after we'd made it, once we got into government. I note that the Labour Party at the moment is promising free tuition for all. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see it. Because that cleans up the mess that they made when they brought them in, quite frankly. And if you think about it, you know, if you think about how long it's taken them to get round to this, you could call it the longest U-turn ever. Thank you.
Hello, over here. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Only 3 out of 10 people in the UK want a second referendum on Brexit.
Oh no, it's statistics. Go on.
Let me finish my question. How rude. Only 3 out of 10 want a referendum, second referendum on Brexit. 7 out of 10 people in the UK want the UK to get on with it. And similarly in Scotland, only 3 out of 10 people in Scotland want a second referendum on independence there. So why does the Liberal Democrats support a referendum in the UK, but not in Scotland?
Right. Well, I'd question your figures in the first part about the 7 out of 10. I think you're referring to a study that was released over the last few days, which was a small study in a certain area, and it wasn't, well, let's say it wasn't representative. I'll question the 7 out of 10. Still, even if it's 5 or 6 out of 10 that have taken that opinion, that still leaves 4 or 3. They still need a voice, and then we're that voice that says, yes, it should be people who decide who gets to make the final deal, who gets to say so on the final deal. And I'd say, not politicians, but people, they get to decide. But not in Scotland. Is that the independence referendum that you're referring to? Which we don't support. Right. Personally, and I'm talking personally here, I have a lot more sympathy now with the Scottish independence referendum than I ever have done. Post-referendum last year, I thought, well, why wouldn't you? And that's my opinion on that for what it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Where is it? Right, okay. Thank you very much to all our prospective parliamentary candidates. We have approximately probably 45 minutes, but obviously depending on your questions, we might go on for another 15 minutes, but we'll finish at the latest by 9:15. So again, keep your questions short, and I hope that the candidates will keep their responses short as well. And if you want to ask a question to a specific candidate, say so in your question. Okay, the floor's open. Where do we go first? 1, so if I give you numbers, 1, Hassan, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could go to be 6 now then. No, 1, 2. Oh, you have. Okay, 1, let's go. Right, if I give you the numbers, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've had a chance already. 6. Anybody else around here? 7, 8. Right. Okay. So remember your numbers because I won't. Right.
Hi there.
How can I forget your face? Come on.
This is a question for all the candidates.
Right.
In 2015, between UKIP and the Green Party, despite receiving 5 million votes, only got 2 seats, which is grotesquely unfair. And yet again, it seems that improving our electoral system isn't there. I'd like the view of all the candidates on electoral reform, including PR for the House of Commons in particular. Thank you.
We'll start at this end. Quick fire responses.
Well, basically, that's the system we got right now. We get either gonna have seat system, we have to change to a France system. We have to vote for one. Everybody votes for one person to lead them, and I think this system is the one we've got. We should have got to a France system because then we won't have any. We have to vote for one person.
Yeah, that's a good response. Go on, Alex.
There's so much that's wrong with our voting system. It means millions of people go effectively unrepresented. As you're saying, 4 million UKIP voters, over 1 million Green voters had 2 MPs between them, which is just absurd, really. But I do think in this particular election, people are mainly focusing on other issues. But certainly if I was elected, it would be something I would raise because you definitely couldn't trust the 2 big parties to do that. But I'd be willing to work with other MPs who support electoral reform to promote the issue in Parliament.
Well, I think this is the single most important issue in politics today. This election has been called, supposedly, everybody's calling it the Brexit election, which, funnily enough, seems to me we're having a second referendum, and that's what we're going to call it already, aren't we? But this non-representation of millions of people in this country can't go on. Proportional representation will come eventually. Eventually, enough people are going to realize or going to understand that those, for example, the last election, 5 million people that were so unrepresented need to have their voice. Because now what would we do? We talk about tactical voting. Tactical voting means voting for somebody you don't really want to win. If we had proportional representation, you could vote for the person or the party that you really believed in, and it would count. At the moment, it doesn't.
Thank you.
Well, during the coalition from 2010, when the Lib Dems joined with the Conservatives in government, we did in fact have a referendum on changing the voting system from first past the post. The Lib Dems asked us to put that in. It was indeed one of the manifesto commitments that was brought forward. We had that referendum. I know they keep coming thick and fast, you may well have forgotten it, but the country voted not to change the system. It was AV. Well, maybe we should have another referendum if Parliament agrees on having another referendum on the changing the system again. But I just wanted to point out that it was turned down last time.
Can you stop interrupting and let us just respond, please?
There are differences in the sort of government you get from first past the post to the more PR systems. It is said that you get more decisive government. You get a clearer direction if you have 2 main parties doing first past the post. But that's, it isn't inevitable that third or smaller parties are always going to languish. As people have said, the Labour Party came from a standing start some years ago and became the dominant one and displaced the Liberals. So I think we will discuss it in Parliament again, no doubt, if people want, and have another referendum. That's what democracy is about.
Thank you, Doctor.
I must say, for the last 6 to 8 months where I've been campaigning, and not one person has brought this up on the doorstep. Not one person has said to me, I'm really clamouring for PR. However, it is an opportunity to get more diversity. You get more women, you get more ethnic minorities into positions of power, which is always a good thing. There's also another option where you can have a second vote, which maybe would open it up more. I would say I'm open for that conversation, but at the moment, my biggest issue is apathy, and lack of engagement, particularly from young people. That's my biggest issue.
Thank you. John?
At last, PR, yes. More of it, lots of it, please. It's been at the core of the Lib Dems for, well, since its inception. I find myself in violent agreement with Alex and Alan that yes, this is the single most important thing in election terms that we could possibly do in the coming years. It does mean more voter engagement, and it will mean that more voices are heard. It is almost criminal that we can have however million voters without representation. It's anathema to me. I don't know why we're still doing this. So yes, bring it on, PR, please.
Thank you. No. Right, who was number 2? Sorry, no. No, we got a number 2.
Thank you, Said. Almost forgotten.
We can move on to number 3.
Apart from the Labour Party, all the candidates, including the Conservatives, think that they have sewn up the general election. So what are you doing as candidates? You know, it's not the best start as politicians, is it? I think one issue more than anything will change everything. Even today in Wales, Labour have taken the lead. And the one issue is probably about social care. I just wanted to ask all the candidates how aware they were of the ins and outs of it. For example, how much social care costs for home care as opposed to residential care, and what kind of choices people will be put through, both the people receiving the care as well as their offspring. Like I used to work in the DHS, how do we get rid of capital? How do we hide capital? As kids, do we pray that our parents die quicker? Whatever. What are the opinions of the people in terms of, about social care and this drastic position the Conservatives have put us in?
Okay, obvious. That's like an exam question, isn't it? I don't know whether the candidates will. Let's go the other way around.
Yeah, very involved question. I'll try and keep.
Yeah, try and keep your answer short, not as long as you sound.
I will try and keep it short. On social care, what we've tried to do is in our 6 billion budget from our penny on the pound, what we tried to do is make sure that social care and NHS is knitted, so that it's together, it's the same thing. For that to happen though, and for that to be successful, we have to have the cap on social care. Now, there's an interesting article from the Conservative group, the Bow Group. I don't know whether you've heard of that, but that called our current situation the biggest stealth tax in the history of the UK. Current costs of social care run around about 39,000 per annum. And I think, yeah, per year, 39,000 per year. That's nursing care. That's nursing care. Slightly less.
I think we're going to probably take hours just to answer this question. So I think, can we just go very quickly to a kind of a response? I know it does, but your question was a very lengthy one.
I think my answer would be to actually make sure that there would be a cap on that, make sure it's a sensible cap, make sure that families who are caring, families who are close-knit and relying on that whole family construct, that they're not put at risk and they're not suffering because of unlimited costs in social care. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy?
Well, we've got a national care crisis, haven't we? We know that, it can't carry on 15-minute appointments where you've got to get somebody on the toilet, hoisted out of bed, dressed, have a conversation, make them a meal. It's just not right. And something obviously had to be done. But what a nightmare for the Tory party today. The U-turn and still no, what's she intending to do? What's the cap? What's going on? And this is a manifesto that has been agreed.
Tracy, your Labour Party, what's your position?
about the position. What we're doing is we have a national healthcare service. The average cost for people in Batley and Spen is £520 per week, and that is the average, so there are some more expensive. What we're intending to do is we are going to have one point of contact and bring all these services together so people are treated with dignity and human beings. And I would say that I don't understand what's the next step. So if you have a stroke at 40, does that mean that you're going to then have to pay from the cost of your house? Or if you have a disabled child that needs ongoing care, this is just the beginning and it's absolutely unacceptable.
Thank you.
My party is in the position of having to take the tough decisions on spending. The proposals that came forward in the manifesto were just that, proposals with a view to producing a green paper for discussion in Parliament after the election. It would have been really quite opaque, perhaps, to say, well, not even to mention it, because it is the most important thing facing the public spending issue. If we'd said nothing about it in the manifesto and then produced a green paper once in power, assuming people give us their vote, well, we would have been pilloried for that as well. No, you must understand, I'm sure you do, the fact we have a baby boomer generation growing old and we have a shrinking number of younger people working to pay to support them in their old age. So what's to be done? The figures are absolutely frightening. We're going to have, over the next 10 years, another 2 million people over the age of 75. And it goes on till 2050. This is a problem for all our young people as well as our old people now. So let's discuss it cross-party and be responsible about our proposals and realistic. That is what my party has been trying to do.
Thank you.
That was a long, almost examination paper, that question. I was going to address the first part of it, which was the idea that the two main parties are dismissing the rest of us and claim it's a two-horse race. Is it okay if I do that?
Very quickly, yeah. No, that's your response from your party.
The question you wanted to ask was just the last one then, was it? Okay. All right, well, social care isn't a separate issue. Social care is all part of our health. There should be an overall vision of our health from birth to death. Why is it being treated as a separate issue? Our National Health Service is what needs the funding, and that brings social care under that umbrella. The way this government has treated the National Health Service is nothing short of disgraceful. Everything is becoming privatized. This whole social care thing, I read a thing from somebody in the city saying at the same time as they were discussing the social care issue, put it into the manifesto, they were talking to insurance companies in the city in London and saying we need a new product that can cover this. And by the way, we're not going to put a cap on the premiums or anything for you, so go and sort it out. The whole thing is about privatizing our healthcare. That's what it comes down to. And as a party, we are 100% against that.
Okay.
What are the choices from?
What will be the thinking forced upon the people receiving the care and their relatives?
Can you answer that in one couple of words? Because I know it's...
What will be the force, did you say? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What?
For the people who are faced with paying so much money, thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds of money, what will be the thoughts that they will have to go through if the Tories come in, which they are, according to you, they are going to come in, and even the House of Lords won't have any opportunity to stop any of the legislation.
Well, I don't think they welcome it. They've already done a U-turn today, haven't they? And public opinion is going to be so much against it. It's such a vote loser that they...
Okay, can we move on, please? Can we move on? Alex, quickly.
Okay, yes, social care issue that really frustrates me at the moment because our council tax is going up 5% this year, 5% next year to try and plug the gap in social care. There's been a big debate on this issue. The Dilnot report in 2011 said you have to, you should have a £35,000 cap. Or the level of the cap is debatable, but there should be a fixed amount that you won't pay more on. And the cost of that was put at about £1.7 billion at the time. So there has to be a cap. The wealthy contribute much more in taxes over the course of their working lives. So having a cap when you get older is probably a fair policy. But
okay, what's the cap?
Basically,
what's the cap?
What's
the cap? And let's move on. What's your cap from your?
The originally proposed cap in David Cameron's manifesto, about 72,000, is fair enough. The issue over funding is a matter of priorities. There's no way we should be funding this through massive council tax rises. It's something, in my personal priorities, I've costed as part of prioritising at the moment spending. I've allocated 1.5 billion that we currently send in foreign aid to go to social care to plug this gap. So you don't need to raise taxes.
Okay.
And you don't need to punish the elderly either.
Thank you. Yeah, you made that point earlier. Thank you.
First and foremost, I believe the main issue is we need to stop privatization of the social health care. We stop the privatization of the NHS, and we need to stop giving contracts to private companies to do this, to carry out health care for us. And secondly, I agree with Alex looking here. We need to completely demolish the foreign aid budget and give a percentage of that to help care for elderly people who need help.
Okay, thank you very much. Who was that? Was number 2? Who was number 3? Just can you just hang on for the roving mic?
Theresa May is quite happy to bring back fox hunting. Which way would the candidates go in the free vote? Would they vote go to ban fox hunting, to keep the ban, or yes, let's go and carry on with this barbaric sport that they used to do before?
So what we'll do is a quick response: yes in favour or no against.
In favour of repealing it or in favour of keeping it?
Favour in keeping it or against. Yes or no?
I believe it to be banned and it's outdated sport.
Great. Okay. Ban. Carry on.
Keep it banned.
Right.
Fox hunting is abhorrent. Keep the ban.
In a free vote, I would be against repealing the Act. Keep fox hunting banned. I'm quite confident, because at least 80% of the population agrees with this stance, there is no way it's going to get into that law will be repealed, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I've no idea why Theresa May is even talking about fox hunting. It's diabolical and it's outrageous, and we shouldn't be supporting it. She's taking us back to the medieval ages, grammar schools, fox hunting. Turn back the clock.
Yes, keep it banned. It's a retrograde step. I think we're more advanced now as a society to go around hunting foxes. And I think I'd just add, we'd hide him on an orange background, we'd never find him.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that question. So you get a quick fire response to that. Who was number 4?
Just want to know what the candidate's position is on EU workers working in the UK, and should their rights be protected, and should that be done unilaterally before Brexit negotiations start?
So yeah, the question is, should EU citizens' rights be protected? Yeah, so the answer should be very quick responses to that, yes or no. We'll start at that in there.
It's a very simple yes from me. Do it unilaterally and celebrate those migrant workers.
And certainly they're running the NHS on our behalf. The bed manufacturers also need them, and regionally businesses would go out of business without them. I also think we also have to be mindful that it's British citizens in Europe as well. And if we flip the question, suddenly everybody's in favour of protecting British citizens in Europe.
Thank you. The Brexit vote, when they've analysed why people voted to leave in the majority, well, the first thing was taking back control, taking back sovereignty, but second, or pretty high up, was anxiety over immigration from the European Union. My party has listened to people on Brexit. We recognise that anxiety about the level of immigration from the EU and the numbers of people who are here is still there. It hasn't gone away just with a vote. We want to protect the rights of our own our own British nationals in the European Union. We want to be fair to those people who came here on good faith to live and work before the vote and before the Article 50 was triggered. But we're going into a negotiation. And the last thing you do is give away a possible bargaining chip before you start.
So
my government, Theresa May, has said that three things will be.
It's something that are you in favour of or not?
I'm not in favour of having an established position before we have been able to establish the rights of our own citizens.
Okay, thank you very much.
In the EU.
Thank you.
100% in favour of doing it unilaterally.
Okay.
That's good bargaining. You don't have to bargain by doing something like, I'll quote David Davis here, we'll put Juncker back in his box.
Thank you.
What kind of an attitude is that? That's not bargaining. That's standing up and banging your chest and saying, "Cool, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough." That's not how you negotiate. Do the right thing.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Can we move on? That's a separate question. That's a separate question, yeah.
Okay. These are people we're talking about, European citizens here, British citizens abroad. The government has tried to resolve this, but the EU has refused to make a reciprocal arrangement so far. I would have hoped that we'd have resolved this issue by now. I absolutely support the right of EU citizens already here to live and work here and have the same rights that they did before. But it has to be a reciprocal arrangement. If we do this unilaterally, we would be putting the rights of our own citizens living abroad at risk, unfortunately and regrettably to say. That is what we would be doing, and it's why the Labour Party position on this is completely wrong.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I believe on the first day of negotiations, before we negotiate a trade deal, we need to sit down with the EU and say, if you promise our citizens living in the European Union, their rights will not be affected, then we will do the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Well, what number have we got to now? Number 5. Lady, are you number 5? All right, we'll give you number 5 anyway.
In 2014, George Osborne said that the government's austerity programme was needed to bail the banks out for a second time. What steps would you take to end austerity?
Is this a question to all the candidates? Quick answers, yeah, quick fire answers. Let's start with this end.
Well, first and foremost, the deficit this country has is 52 billion. I've already said how I would eliminate the deficit. Double corporation tax, bringing it in line with the United States of America. Scrap the foreign aid budget and stop sending money to Brussels. That will help give us a surplus. And for the first 3 years, I would not run a surplus. I would invest in housing, building roads, railways.
Okay, thank you.
I've already said quite a bit on this. The public finances have to be brought back into balance. We're spending £40 billion a year at the moment just on debt interest. So we have to get that deficit down. And the goalposts keep moving, but it has to be by the end of the next Parliament. But there's things that I've said we need to save money on. I think also, for example, HS2 should be scrapped because the cost keeps spiralling out and out of control. It's just diverting resources from where they're needed. So we need a complete comprehensive spending review again, and actually get serious about it this time.
Austerity. Austerity is a bunch of millionaire Tories telling those of us that are living on ordinary everyday salaries, we've got to make cutbacks. And their point of doing it was to reduce the deficit, which, as other people have already said here, went from, in 2010, from 980 billion to 2016 up to 1.7 trillion. So they introduced austerity, made the cutbacks, and it didn't work. The idea that you have to cut the deficit to zero and be in profit is a nonsense one anyhow. The whole world runs on debt. Most people in here probably run on debt. We've got credit cards and mortgages. Governments run on debt. What you do is you manage that debt. Saying you have to cut it back to zero within this amount of time is unrealistic and unnecessary.
Thank you.
my government, Theresa May's team with Philip Hammond as Chancellor, has eased the deficit reduction plan, as you've alluded to. They have perfectly well taken on board what you said about that. They realise that in order to have a cohesive society, you have to have people supporting these things. But the best way out of austerity is to have a strong and prosperous economy, having business pay its taxes, having people in work, in good jobs, able to pay income tax, and those are the things that bring about better public finances and gives us the money to spend on the public services. That has to be the priority. Therefore, we need the best possible deal with our European Union colleagues in order to keep our prosperity, our economy safe.
Well, our debt, the current debt is, I think, if I remember this right, is the combined debt from every single Labour government since 1945. It's absolutely huge. They've missed every target, and it's unacceptable. It's actually a choice. What we would do as the Labour Party, we would raise corporation tax. At the moment, it's one of the lowest in Europe. We would also, over those people earning over £80,000, that's £1,600 a week, would pay a small increase. We would also make sure that that our minimum wage, £10 an hour, means that there's more coming into the community, and we would also have an infrastructure plan where we would invest in roads and railways. And what we have to do is we have to end austerity. We want better lives for our children, better futures, better ways of living. The food bank, Batley Food Bank, is off the scale.
Thank you, Tracy.
We just need to prioritise it, and it doesn't seem to me that they are actually even concerned about that.
Thank you.
We were convinced in coalition that austerity was finished by 2013. We said so. Vince Cable said so. Yet it still persisted. It's an ideological pursuit, is austerity. I say we go after the big boys who are avoiding billions in tax, not the odd little benefit fraud. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you've got the last benefit cheat by the scruff of the neck, and you look behind you and your country's a wasteland? What are you going to do? You're going to feel really happy that you've got that guy who's been getting away with it all that time. You're not, are you? Go for the big boys, get the money in, and get spending, get investing in business, get investing in education.
Thank you. All right, where are we? Number?
Right. Theresa May is actually making a big deal about her leadership. I mean, she was Home Secretary for 6 years, and every year she's actually failed immigration limit. And they said, the Tories said, the immigration would be into tens of thousands, and in fact, it ended up hundreds of thousands. She said she would be a good leader. She's a leader. She said 11 times since last she became Prime Minister that there would be no election. She called one.
Okay, yeah, I know where you're getting to. So you basically...
and then now about social care. She's been actually asked to come out, kicking and screaming, to actually to answer. And having tried, she hasn't answered anything yet.
So what's your question?
So basically what I'm saying is, how can we trust the Tories and the Theresa May's leadership?
The leader. Right, so basically, Doctor, the leadership of your... No, I think just, yeah, the Doctor here.
The choice at this general election is very clear. As you've pointed out, it's a question of leadership. You have a choice between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn.
Okay.
I rest my case.
All right. Alan? Wait. Yeah, hang on. You'll get your chance.
Well, even George Osborne, the front page of the Evening Standard today, strong and stable, weak and wobbly.
Okay, good.
I'm actually disgusted with the campaign that Theresa May is running. I think it's unconstitutional. She is claiming, well, our candidate here has just said, you've got a choice, choose Theresa May or Jeremy Corbyn. Okay, I suggest when you get to the ballot box and you get your paper, vote for Theresa May. If her name isn't on there, choose somebody else that's not a Conservative. You cannot vote for Theresa May. Only her constituents can vote for her. What if you put your tick in that blue box on the June the 8th because you want to vote for Theresa May and she loses her seat, and you find you voted for Boris Johnson? How are you going to feel then?
Okay, thank you. Alex?
Completely echo what Alan has said. When you get your polling card, it says election of Member of Parliament for Batley and Spen. And it was you who answered, that's the question, sorry. So that is how you should base your votes. As far as the leadership goes, Theresa May is the only leader of a party that is, I think, completely united around Brexit. Like it all over, the majority of Labour candidates supported Remain, and if a majority of Labour MPs get elected, it's going to put Brexit at risk.
Right, okay.
So, lesser, for me personally, I like Jeremy Corbyn as a principled man. I don't agree with his principles, but it's lesser of, lesser of two evils is the phrase, isn't it?
Go on, move on.
Well, first and foremost, you have to look at a leader. Theresa May she didn't say which side she was fighting in Brexit. She was not a full Brexiteer, she was a full Remainer. Somebody who hides is weak. She does not believe in her principles. So how can you vote for somebody who did not come clean if she's Brexit or she's for the European Union?
Okay, thank you. John, did you want to say anything?
I was taught if you can't say something nice, don't say anything.
Okay, that's good. What number are we now? Down here.
Where do the panelists stand on maintaining rights for the European Union? Obviously, we have been very lucky that lots and lots of legislation has come in to protect workers' rights through the European Union. Where are the panelists? Where do they stand on ensuring that that workers' rights are protected in the Brexit negotiations?
So basically, yeah, quick fire responses to that. Are you going to be in favor of retaining the human rights of employees, yeah? Let's just start, John. Employees, yeah?
Yeah, protecting workers' rights in Europe and in the UK is absolutely vital. One of my main fears and one of my main campaign messages during the referendum was that we need those rights for workers. We fought hard for them. Many of them are there because we put them there. The UK put those rights there. Now, to actually threaten that and undermine that and then hold that, just hand it over to a government without the people actually having a say so, it just perplexes me. I wouldn't know why would you even want to do that? So that's my take on that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, as working on the Women and Equality Select Committee, this is one of the things we're discussing in quite a lot of detail about the rights post-Brexit. I would say that Ed Miliband had a very good line on this that I totally support, that when we do negotiate our rights, that it isn't the ceiling, it's the floor, that we actually build on where we are and ensure that we have proper rights for also, humanitarian rights, women's rights, paternity, maternity, pregnancy rights, the right to a fair trial, all of these things, we just have to build on those.
Great, thank you.
Theresa May in the Conservative Party manifesto has said that we are guaranteed the European Union workers' rights.
Thank you.
Tribunal fees.
Right, can
people taking their rights.
Of course, I think the rights should be protected. It should be a very important point in the negotiations. A bigger point is, why has this become, the actual negotiations, a party political thing? Our extraction as a country from the European Union should not be party political. I think there should have been, this came from a liberal, I saw on the television the other day, I have to say, it should be cross-party. Why aren't we sending a cross-party delegate to do the negotiations? It's not party political. We are withdrawing as a country from the European Union.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly didn't support Brexit to have a bonfire of workers' rights, and it's very important that when we Brexit, it is, the sovereign right of Parliament then to protect those rights and, enhance them. I do have a track record as a trade union representative in my workplace as well, so I certainly have that interest at heart as well.
Thank you.
I think with all the candidates on the issue, workers' rights need to be protected from bosses who may not want to grant them. The people need the law on their side to stop workers abusing them. Stop bosses abusing them.
What number are we on now? You're right. There's one here. Well, let's down here first. Number 8. Yeah. Who was number 9? You were number 21. Right. Sorry. Go on.
Mine's quite a simple question. Simply, why do you want to be the MP for Batley and Spen and not somewhere else?
Just because you love the people here. Right.
Well, I was born in this constituency. I'm a local lad. I know this constituency inside out. I've never lived anywhere else. I've grown up in this constituency. I know the problems facing this constituency. That's why I believe I will be a good MP for this constituency.
Good. I like the 30-second answers, yeah?
I've lived in and around this constituency for all of my life. The only time I've not been in the area is when I was at university. I really, really want to promote this area as much as I can. And I could never stand anywhere else. And if I lose, I'll still be here. I'm not sure we can say the same for everyone here.
Good, thank you.
I didn't grow up here, but I do live here. This is where I live. This is where I've settled. So obviously I want to represent my local constituency. I've got a little bit of an issue, actually. Earlier on, Mrs. Myatt said she grew up in West Yorkshire. I've got a newspaper clipping from the North West Times that actually says in print, while she was campaigning up there, that she grew up in Cumbria. So I'm a little bit confused by that.
Okay, let her respond to that. Come on, guys.
I have been unfortunate in my life to have a successful father who moved to better himself in his work. So yes, I have moved around.
Okay.
I did have some years on the Cumbrian coast in my childhood. It was very nice, but I've also had years in Yorkshire.
Okay.
My party is the party of aspiration. I aspire to be your MP, and if you elect me, I'll be as good as I possibly can.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Come on, move on, please. Sorry, Alex. Sorry, Doctor. Move on, please.
Well, why do I want to be your MP? Because I bloody love you. And, you know, over the last 6 months, obviously I'm from the area. I grew up here, I went to school here. I moved away to fulfill my ambitions and I came back, obviously, to stand after Joe and also to try and give something back. But I know how amazing this community is, and the last 6 months has been the best 6 months of my life. And somebody once said, a few weeks ago actually, said, well, now you can go back to acting. You must be joking. This is the job of my life. I really am dedicated to this community. There's so much to do. I just want to get on with the job.
Like pause for applause there. I've spent the last 7 years working for my community. I'm an elected councillor. I know there's a few of you in the room. You all understand how we got into that. We care about our communities. We want to make change. We want to make change for the better. That's why we're here. Now, I believe that I can make change in more communities than just my own. And I want to make change in your communities and help you guys out.
Thank you. What number are we now? Number 9. No, you won. Right, let's just start again. This lady here, 1.
Chairman, are there any written questions?
Yeah, I've got some. I'll leave that for the last 10 minutes.
Hello, I'd like
Right.
to ask everyone on the panel,
what they think of the coverage of the recent events, like the television coverage. As far as I can see, I haven't really seen any journalists giving Theresa May a hard time. And why is that? And what's your opinion on that? I've had to really search for any answers that I want. They're not forthcoming on television.
Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Yes?
Hello, and thanks for asking that question. Is there a particular television channel that you're thinking of, or is it just generally?
I do tend to watch BBC, but I'm having to flick, and I'm having to search the internet to get questions to the things that I would like journalists to ask.
So it's the BBC, but other channels are available. Yeah. Okay. I've heard quite a lot of people complaining about bias in television. Now, both the left and the right complain about bias in television. We complain, my own party complains about not getting enough airtime. And I think the Greens spectacularly did so as well recently, that they pointed out our own issue that we don't get enough airtime. I think if you're upsetting enough people, you're probably doing your job. And I honestly think that with the BBC in particular, I think if we really kind of weaken it and say, "Oh, right, you're not doing your job. You're being selective in your reporting." I think if we weaken it to such a point where a government actually pulls the plug on it, then we've got a certain Mr. Murdoch waiting in the wings to take control of our press, and then we'll really see what biased press looks like.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a really good question, because actually Theresa May is being controlled by Aaron Banks. We know this, don't we? And he's running an incredibly tight ship. Sorry, not Aaron Banks. Who am I thinking of? Linton Crosby. Thank you. Somebody else in tight trousers. Yeah, Linton Crosby. And so she's going to stage manage events. She's going to factories in Yorkshire, surrounded by acolytes with boards. She's not having real conversations on the streets. When they say they're going up and down the country, they're not really. I do agree with you that when we have to have equal time on screen, it's a legal requirement during a general election. But it's the choice of the pictures. So you can have Theresa May talking to so-called business people while Jeremy Corbyn's reading a story to a child about going on a bear hunt, and the clip they use is, "And we're all getting lost." It is actually choices in the edit. I do agree with you. But I think the Labour Party and the members and the membership has risen hundreds of thousands over the last few months. We're pushing back, and Facebook and social media are taking control. My issue is that all those young people who are complaining about MSM, they actually register to vote and actually use their democratic vote in the election where it matters.
Thank you.
Tracy, is your husband in the BBC? Is that, have I got that wrong?
No, he's freelance director.
Right. I just wondered if he might be able to give some input. I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I think it is a fair point that if you're getting criticism of the coverage from right, left, and centre, you're probably doing it about right. But I don't know.
Thank you.
No, I don't know why there's this bias or seems to be a better coverage for Theresa May either. I don't understand it. I mean, most of the press barons are all multi-billionaires benefiting from Tory tax cuts and stuff, but I'm sure they're not influenced by that. And I saw an article recently. I saw an article recently that said even at the BBC, there was a 16-person team in the political news team, and 9 of them are ex-Tory campaigners, including Lisa Kunsberg, the head of the team.
Thank you, Alan. So basically, we're saying they are biased. Okay.
Generally, the slant in the media is usually towards the winner, and you see certain newspapers that switch sides, and this is why a lot supported Blair and then switched to the Conservatives. That's a lot of what's going on. I think today in the coverage, we've seen a much more robust approach towards Theresa May. The weak and wobbly this lady is for turning and so on. Thank you, Michael Craig. But it's worth saying the Labour Party has invited a lot of the negative media coverage from, for example, their MPs not supporting the leader and things like that.
Well, let's turn the question here. If you were Rupert Murdoch, who would you want to win the election? Lower taxes for him and lower taxes for his rich friends. And of course, the BBC is owned by the British government. So who are they going to back? They're going to back the current British government to win.
Thank you. Right, we've got 3. What I'll do is, we'll take all the questions, and can you remember the questions? And then we'll decide which ones we're going to take. Go on. Well, Ibrahim, yeah. Yeah. 1, 2. Go on.
Anne mentioned, I was really pleased to hear Anne talking about fair share and distribution of local taxes. Is it going to be anything along the kind of standards that the government set, presently North-South divide, where London gets something in the region of around £6,000 per head compared to West Yorkshire residents getting around £800 per head in terms of infrastructure spending? So what I'm talking about is, what will the individual parties be looking at to doing in terms of redistribution of wealth in terms of north and south?
Right, there's a question on redistribution of wealth. Let's get a quick question from this gentleman there, and then we'll go across there.
The Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, says that if Donald Trump asks the British government to start bombing in Syria, that it would be too difficult to refuse, and that he wouldn't go back to Parliament to ask MPs to vote in favour. They would just go ahead with bombing. Could the panel tell us where they would stand if they were a member of Parliament, if they would support bombing in Syria or not?
Okay. Just take one there, and then, yeah, go on there, across there. Yeah, yes.
Thank you. I've got a question for the Labour candidates. What investment are you going to bring to Batley apart from the Rocky Horror Show?
Okay, and then I think we'll take those 3, and then we'll go to the next 3. So basically, the first one was about redistribution of wealth. What's your position? Quickly, and then the next. So let's take that one first.
Well, first and foremost, I don't believe in HS2 because that's going to take those northern people have to travel south to work in London. And redistribution of wealth, I completely agree with. Doubling corporation tax, I agree with. Going after the bankers to get the £700 billion that we used to build them out with.
So you're in favour of redistributing wealth? Okay, Alex.
We're seeing a lot of movements in this direction with the metropolitan mayors being elected recently, although the turnout's not very good, but there's a movement to devolving more funding to regions, and that's something that we've fallen a bit behind on, and we need to find a solution that will work for us and bring more of that investment and more control over it, crucially, into the region.
I like the government's idea of the Northern Powerhouse. Unfortunately, they don't seem to actually have any will to implement it. There should be a movement to move some of that wealth, especially further north. And like Alex says, there has been some movements with the devolution of power with the metropolitan mayors, etc. But that idea that came and went, it seemed, to the Northern Powerhouse needs resurrecting.
Thank you. You're absolutely right about the infrastructure spending that needs to happen to improve a lot of the north. People have mentioned HS2, but actually the key thing is we need to invest in rail infrastructure from east to west, and similarly improve the roads, because that's the connectivity across the north is absolutely vital for business and jobs and the like. The Northern Powerhouse is the phrase has gone, but the ideas are still being put into place, and certainly as far as the new mayor in Manchester is concerned, there's a very exciting project started by George Osborne of devolving all this money, but in particular control. For instance, they are there integrating social and NHS care, and it's the Manchester Council which has control of how that's delivered. So we're waiting with great interest to see if they can do a better job regionally, listening to their people locally, much better than perhaps can be done in Westminster. So I think that's really quite interesting and hopeful.
Thank you.
We're not taking all 3 questions as a cluster.
No, you just do that one, and then we'll.
Investment in Batley.
The redistribution of wealth.
All right, so the redistribution of wealth. Well, obviously, we know that there is this massive north-south divide financially. But if you have the political will, for example, in London, the schools were failing. What they did is they put money and they invested in schools, they invested in teachers, and now there's very few schools in London that are not outstanding. Now, we need to do that here. We need to make sure we get a proper slice of the pie. And there's a way to do that. And in the Labour manifesto, we've got the Regional Investment Bank. So we need to also say to our businesses, you have the chance here to grow your business. Now, I've held meetings with Northern Rail as well, that it's the infrastructure. Once Leeds is too expensive for businesses and families, they'll be moving to Batley and Spen because we're fabulous. And we need to make sure that we have a fast rail link. So I've been pressing Northern Rail to make sure that electrification hurries up. And more than anything, we need a great bus service. I was here yesterday, and very quickly, one of the ladies was complaining about the 228, and it's about more people using buses, and we need to put money into buses as well as trains.
Very quickly, step one is roll back the massive cuts from central government to local government. Give Kirklees back its £54 million that it took. Myself and Tracy met in London to try and do that, just that very thing. They weren't receptive. So that would be my very first port of call, and allow that money to be spent in a devolved way by local areas, so they have control. They know what they need to focus on. They know their priorities. Let them spend the money. Okay, very quickly, the next question was around, would you be in favor of bombing Syria? So it's either yes or no, and no kind of, you don't need to. We'll go back down again. Yeah, quickly, yes or no, and we don't. Yeah, in those circumstances, absolutely refuse. Right.
Well, I've actually spoken in the House of Parliament regarding this, and regarding no-fly zones and about humanitarian aid. What is going on shames us, and we need action in a positive way. There's no need and no desire for more innocent people to die.
Good.
We absolutely need to get people round the table to hammer out a peaceful solution to the sad problems there. Really, bombs and violence and just perpetuates the next cycle. We really have to have diplomatic solutions, and that means getting Russia on board as well as the rest of the United Nations, the EU, the British government, but crucially America. They need to sit and talk, and so that we won't have to consider the appalling bombing.
Would you be in favor, yes or no?
Do you know what? I don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I would
no,
listen and learn.
Right, thank you.
A 6-year-long war, 5 million refugees, 250,000 people dead already. And somebody thinks the solution is more bombs? Absolutely not. Good. Ridiculous.
We decide when we intervene, not Trump. I'm taking no lessons from Labour on this. Remember, WMD, 45 minutes. We were America's lapdog, and look where that got us.
First and foremost, I assume the gentleman meant bombing the Assad regime. I thank God every single day that President Putin intervened in Syria and set ISIS on the run. If it wasn't for him, ISIS will be all over Syria. The Assad regime does not order people to come and kill people in Britain. ISIS does that, and if I'm an MP, I will vote against bombing the Assad regime.
Okay, I'm very conscious it's now 9:15 and we said we'd finish at 19. Are people happy to go on for another 15 minutes? Yeah?
Written questions.
Written questions. I've got them. Your question was investment in Batley. So is that a question to all the candidates? I don't know whether the people be able to cancel. No, it's not a. I'm going to ask a question that I've had here. It's to all the candidates. What opportunities will you provide for young people in Batley and Spen? And please make a note of what they say, so whoever then is elected will hold them to it.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a young person. I'm 20 years old. So having a young MP will, of course, energize the youth of this constituency. Of course, I know as a young person what the needs are of a young person.
Yeah, what
and I
will you
believe I
bring?
can
Just give
best.
me one answer. What will you bring to the?
I will fight for more funding for education for young people.
Okay.
Vocational courses.
I want more grammar school places in our area. I don't want to take away the opportunities that myself and Tracy Brabin had and that she wants to take away.
I think the bigger picture, as a party, we've said we'd scrap tuition fees, reinstate the education maintenance allowance, and match EU funding for higher education, which brings more opportunities to young people. On a local level, I'd do the opposite to what Alex just said. I'd do away with grammar schools and academies and bring them all under the local education authority.
I would work to raise standards in the schools, all schools, so that parents have a choice of good schools wherever they are. I'd also encourage the development of technical education so that the young people are as skilled as they can be to take advantage of better jobs, which will come down the line, and they are there now. One of the problems we have here is low wage, low skilled jobs. We need to raise the level of wages, and we need higher skills for people to take those jobs up.
Well, thank you for your question. Obviously, Batley and Spen needs a vision for our young people. You don't have to move to London, you don't have to move to Leeds or Manchester to fulfill your dreams. And that is one of my missions, that you can stay next to your family and be near the school where you went and still have the career that you want. One of the ways to do that is apprenticeships. And being on the Bill Committee, I know how impactful they could be. And I've been speaking to businesses and to trying to put apprentices with businesses. I also think the Labour Party is really absolutely focused on young people. Scrapping tuition fees, that debt could actually be cleared by 2017 come a Labour government. And bringing back EMA where people with no support from their families, no finances, can actually go into further education.
Thank you.
I could speak more, but
I know you
not.
Thank you. Yes, it's education. But in there as well has to be an engagement. How do you engage people, young people, in education? Well, I've been doing a lot of work in the arts. I've been working with what's it called now? Artistic. Oh, cracky. Creative Scene, that's the one. So I've been working with Creative Scene from their inception for about 3 years ago. I work with Pennine Prospects, which is a company that's a regen, but also an arts development project. And it's those things that fire young people's imaginations. It's those that draw them into schools, get them educated, and set them up for a successful life. So yes, education, but draw young people in with the arts. That's what my energies would be spent on.
Right, we're going to take 3 questions, 1, 2, and then 3, and then we'll decide which ones we're going to respond to.
Right, one of my biggest concerns living here, born and bred in Heckenreich, is
we're going to be finishing in 5 minutes.
There's a lot of hate crime, predominantly racial, religious, and I think one of the main reasons is because there's not enough integration within the communities. So my question is, what are you guys going to do to bring communities together because of all this ignorance? And a follow-on question to that is, which you guys did touch upon with the media, with the biasness, but not really religious, is there's a lot of negativity against Islam. It's a lot of Islamophobia. When there's a certain crime being done on the media, there's a lot of attention of Islam. Now, this is what's increasing the hate crime as well. So I'm all for freedom of speech, but I think this needs to be addressed because all this is doing is causing a lot more hate crime as well. So what are you guys going to do about this?
Okay. Question, just pass that mic on to this. I'll take that to Aziz.
Hello. Does this work? Yeah. I work for a tier 1 automotive supplier. About 50% of our business goes to Renault in France. What do you really think we'll gain from getting a no deal Brexit. Realistically, that's half of our business that would no longer be here in 5 years' time.
Okay. Aziz, last one.
The brother there asked a question I was going to ask, which was about Islamophobia
Yeah.
and integration. And I want to ask the Tory candidate and the Labour one candidate, what you will do positively to tackle Islamophobia and the racist white media who constantly attack Muslims with negative stereotyping. Also, in terms of integration, what would you do to integrate communities in a positive way?
So there's, I think what we'll do is we'll take that question first and we'll finish off with that one. So the no deal, yeah? Did people get that question on the no deal?
Yeah, what would a no deal Brexit?
No deal Brexit, yeah?
First and foremost, the European Union, we have a trade deficit with the European Union. If they give us no deal, then they are shooting themselves in the foot, because we buy more from the European Union than they buy from us. If they have no deal, they'll be shooting themselves in the foot, and hopefully we'll get a free trade deal with all our Commonwealth partners, opening up a market to 2 billion people around the world. So hopefully they shouldn't need to be worried. We'll get a trade deal with the Commonwealth.
So what happens with a no deal is you then trade on World Trade Organization rules, and the EU can't treat us any worse than any other WTO member. I don't think anyone actually, can I finish?
Yeah.
Nobody really wants a no deal. Everyone wants a free trade deal. It's in the mutual interest. And I think we shouldn't be really talking up the prospect of a no deal. It would be better than a bad deal, and we have to be prepared to accept the possibility, because if we don't do that, then the European Union will simply offer us the worst possible terms that they can. So it's about a sensible approach to the negotiation, but we should be talking up that the most likely outcome at the moment is that we will have a free trade deal in the mutual interest.
The only reason the possibility of a no deal has come up is because of Mrs. May's attitude to the negotiations. She's the one that brought up the possibility of that happening, because her attitude is, give me what I want or I'm going to walk away. But what happens if we get to that situation? That's a situation where we might actually need another referendum. And don't all groan about it. The thing is, it will be 3 years down the line. It'll be a different referendum. It'll be asking about what kind of a deal we're going to have, or should we just stay in the EU, or whatever. It'll be a different referendum with a different format, with different answers, different alternatives. And it'll be 3 years later. It's not just saying, oh, I didn't like the referendum, let's have another one. And I think that's a valid option.
On the question of no deal Brexit, there is always the risk that if agreement is not reached, then there is no deal. But obviously, everybody wants to work very hard, certainly Theresa May and her team, to get a good deal, a good Brexit, good for the UK, but also a good deal for us would also be good for the EU citizens, because it will be around trade, and trade is good. It's good for them and it's good for us, as you've already said. It's not clear to me yet who is going to be on the negotiating side and will actually make the decision on behalf of the European Union. Is it really going to be the commissioners, Juncker and Barnier, or is it going to be the European Council reining them in when they look as if ideologically they're off on a different track? We don't know how Macron is going to get on with Mrs. Merkel. We don't know if Mrs. Merkel is going to be re-elected. The polls look as though she will. There's a lot going on. And I think that because there are 27 countries, we're just one country, each of those will individually have their own view on what is a good deal for them. So what we get.
So the negotiators are one unit. They've agreed the deal. Read the
Can we get her to answer the question?
Bloody rubbish.
Don't be rude. Come on.
Very rude.
No, that's not polite.
No.
So, look, nobody voted to leave the European Union to lose their job, did they? And I absolutely understand what you're saying, because everybody I go and visit, all the companies, they're anxious about that. And what we're absolutely saying is that no deal is not an option. But talking about trade with other countries, I mean, we saw Theresa May holding Donald Trump's hand in the hope of being right in the front of the queue of our special deal with the rest of with America, and now he just casually says, "Well, we're behind Europe." We cannot, we cannot go around the world just hoping that if we hold people's hands, they'll give us a deal.
Okay.
Well,
doesn't mean we won't come out if there's no deal.
No, what we will be doing on day one of a Labour government, Keir Starmer is tearing up the Great Repeal Bill, and we're starting again from a deal that's going to be putting workers first, and workers' rights first, and we're going to insist that there will be not a position where we fall off a cliff, and we're not going to be saber rattling about Gibraltar and about terrorism sharing information. We're not. That's not the way to get the best deal for our country.
Right, can we just move on, please? Can we move on? That's.
No, we're leaving the EU.
We're leaving. We're leaving. Finish. Go on, John.
Just to keep it brief. Personally, I don't think there is a deal with Brexit, which is better than what we have now. You'd expect me to say that. We started off this question with democracy. I need to bring it back to the people. We have more questions. We have bigger, more complicated questions. We need more democracy, not less.
Right, this is the last question, which was around integration, Islamophobia, and there was also a question here from Reverend Mark Humpleby, and I'll just read it. There are great relationships in Batley with people of different faiths. Our faiths encourage us to care for the elderly, the poor, the sick. What policies can you offer to help such vulnerable people? So basically, it's around, supporting people around integration and around. So in a sense, the question is, how can you foster or encourage integration, and what will you do? What will you do to tackle Islamophobia? So let's start at that end, and this will be the last questions.
I'm conscious of time, so
yeah.
Our manifesto makes it quite clear that we're calling for an open, a united, and a tolerant society, and we'll back that up with legislation, with harsher penalties for hate crime, but also we need to back that up with education. We need to back that up with situations where we can be tolerant with each other. I've attended quite a few separate events, such as the interfaith cricket and things like that, which was very successful. You'll be glad to know that Yorkshire won. That's a Lancashireman speaking, so please don't hold that against me. But it's those kinds of initiatives that come from within the community that need investment, and it's those ones that need supporting. You can't do this from outside. You honestly can't. You can't do this from a governmental level. You need to do this on a community level, and that's what needs the investment.
And the question around Islamophobia?
As far as Islamophobia goes, I think we've all seen it well documented that post-referendum there was a huge spike in hate crime. And of course I include Islamophobia in that. One of the worst examples that I ever saw of incitement to this was the Daily Mail and the hatchet job that they did in this area, not just Batley, but in Dewsbury as well. And yes, there should be a way of calling people to account for that kind of thing in press.
Can I say, I think it's also about our community, that our community is absolutely amazing when it comes to interfaith. The Mosque Open Day, the great get-together, which is happening in June, which is completely cross-faith. Organisations and charities like Downs and Special Friends, completely cross-faith, cross-cultures. Our community is absolutely working 100% to make that happen. There are organisations organisations that are amazing, like Tell Mama, that are taking this on an issue with the police. The police have been incredibly open and taking hate crime more seriously. Talking to Steve Cotter, the chief super, he was saying that actually while the spike in hate crime is unacceptable, a lot of that is also down to the police taking it seriously. So the numbers have increased, but it's not acceptable in our community. And Batley and Spen, more than anyone, we are going to be best practice about how we integrate, because there is a lot of love between these communities.
Well, certainly as far as integration is concerned, this sort of evening is absolutely first rate, because we have here people of all faiths, we have here people from different parts of the community, and we have not yet shot anybody, so that's wonderful. So this is the template.
Not yet.
Sorry, what I'm saying is, this is a very good example of how you can come together around this. It happens to be about politics, but if you could have things, as you said, about cricket and about you know, maybe cooking, you know, that wonderful lady who won the bake-off, there's all sorts of things. Maybe some of it will be around things rather than difference, about things that we share, things we have. The other thing I would like to say about phobias is phobia means fear, and fear largely is stoked up by fear of the unknown. And the unknown is because people just don't know their neighbours. And as you say, as you've all said, that's what we need to do, is know our neighbours, listen to each other and learn.
Thank you.
This,
come on.
It's from the library, because if you bought it, you wasted your money. You're a disgraceful.
okay, that's enough.
Let's not be personal here, please.
This is a bigger issue than the other candidates have been talking about, I think. Islamophobia is fueled by the likes of the Prevent initiative from the government, which is supposedly in place to stop radicalization. But their definition of radicalization is based on the fact that they say the definition of extremism is all to do with religion. Now, in the current climate, what do you think that puts into people's heads? That's not saying religion, that's saying Islam. It's an absolutely disgraceful initiative that should be scrapped. And we should also be educating people. Look at the issue of Palestine, that also causes similar problems. There's a lot of educated people in here, and you're obviously all connected, but I bet if we asked every single person here the history of Palestine, why it's such an issue, what the problems are, why it's ongoing, the majority of them don't know. We need to educate people about these things. That's what counts, education. If I was, I'll tell you what I would do. Here's a real practical thing that I would do. If you elected me to be the MP for Batley and Spen, I would get in touch with the leaders of the Muslim community here, and I would employ one of your brightest and best young people to be on my staff and take them to Westminster with me, so that I would always have somebody who knew the issues and could be educated in the ways of Westminster, maybe groom them to be the next MP after me.
Thank you.
Okay, in the light of the Casey review, I raised this, and it's something I really want to have a conversation about, and I've got some solid policy ideas, but I'd be interested in hearing more on what you think about these things. In terms of Islamophobia, it is fueled by ignorance, and it's something we need to address through education. It is also fueled by the actions of Islamist extremists who are none of our friends, and they want to turn us on each other. So we must maintain at all times a very robust stance against Islamist extremism. I quite like the idea of having a marquee event in Batley, which I think we desperately need anyway, and it could be linked into sort of the great get-together or some sort of annual event. I think we need to have restore funding for English language education, because we won't have integration unless we're speaking the same language. But generally, there's other things. There are big concerns over differing attitudes on certain issues, which were highlighted in the survey for the Channel 4 programme, which included some localities in the local area. And there is some interesting draft legislation out there about the regulation of Sharia courts and how they can, fit within the UK legal structure and make sure that, say, the evidence from people of different genders is treated equally, and things like that. So this is something I'm really emphasising in my campaign, and if anyone has any reaction to any of those ideas or has other ideas, please let me know.
They can come and talk to you.
Islamist.
All right, let's just.
First and foremost, I believe in education. Education and integration. For example, there are 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. 10% of that is 160 million. 1% is 16 million. So 1% of Muslims are 16 million. How many terrorists are there? How many terrorist attacks happen? Probably less than 100. So if 1% is 16 million Muslims, 0.00001% of Muslims carry these things out. Statistics like this should be shown and shared. We need to have faith integration to show how many similarities we have. We have so many similarities with Christianity. Love your mother, love your father. So many of these things. We are more similar than we are different.
Thank you very much. Okay. It's gone 9:30. I think we're going to draw a line there. I just wanted to ask two questions to the audience here.
After this election, are you going to go back to UK? Can I just ask for your views regarding
On that point, right, I would serve the full term as an independent. I wouldn't join any political party.
After the election, if you didn't win the election,
Oh, you mean if I don't win?
yeah, would you go back to UK?
At the moment, no. I've made no decisions. I'll tell you what I'm actually doing, right? I'm currently in the process of setting up. Wait, hang on a minute.
Hang on, let him answer his questions.
I'm in the process of setting up a local independent group, Heavy Woolen Independence, and it's kind of going through the various processes at the moment, but...
Right, okay, no more. I've got two questions, please. I've got two questions. How many of you already made up your minds of who you're going to vote before you came? Just show of hands. How many of you already? Quite a few. Right, the next question is, how many of you changed your minds after having heard the candidates? Just one. Right. Okay, now I think what I need to do is just which one? Which comment? Right. Okay, right.
I
She's going to
apologise
respond
unreservedly for a stupid comment.
She's
I was
gonna-
apologising before I passed on the microphone.
Can you please be
I'm
quiet?
really sorry.
Respect, please. Can you be quiet? The candidate is got the mic. Right.
I'm
Do you want
really
to
sorry.
Right. Okay. Can I just wind this up? Can I thank our candidates, Tracy Brabham, Dr. Anne Mayett, John Lawson, Alan Freeman, Alex Lukic, and Mr. Hanif. So thank you very much for giving up your time being with us. Okay. And thank you to you all.
Well done. First time to meet you. Well done.
Can you have a shot at all the candidates?